So I was always interested in human beings, right? And when I was 20, I spent a year in India. And I just went one way, and I wanted to see how long would it take me until I get tired of traveling. And it took a while. And I explored different.
Where did you go? Tell me
Oh
where
my
you went.
God, so many places. I started with the famous places, right, where tourists go through north, and then Goa, and then I had this whole Buddhist phase where I went to monasteries and stayed there for a few months and discovered meditation. Then I started going to tribal areas near Kolkata. Like I went through party phase, volunteering phase, hiking and mountain phase, because a year, it's a long time. And at some point, it felt like my hands are starting to itch. Like I had too much energy. And I was like, okay, I think I'm done reading books and getting into conversations with people. Like I want to do something, but I wasn't really sure what it is. And at the time, I was a bit against just having a document from a university that tells you what you're good at. I had this romantic vision in mind of, if I'll ever want to learn anything, I'll just find a master and, work my way into learning that thing, some sort of a apprenticeship, I think it's called.
Apprenticeship, yeah.
And then I was working in this studio for creating light fixtures from porcelain. And every day I would hitchhike home. And I liked engaging into conversations with strangers. That's something that I still do. It's even the name of my show. It's called Go Out and Talk to Strangers, because it's part of my life philosophy. It always exposed me to new views. And one day, someone kind of like planted this idea in my head. She's like, you don't have to get a degree, but maybe just take a class in something that you find interesting. And then it stayed with me. What do I find interesting? What do I find interesting? And architecture came to mind because my mom co-founded an ecological farm in Israel, educational farm. And I remember being very excited about sustainable design, but it always seemed not enough. It's always a bit tired. It's not as pretty as normal houses. And I just thought that we can do that better, in a sense that it's not a step down in how we live. Maybe we can make it even better than standard houses. And then I realized that it's 5 years to become an architect. And I was so scared of that commitment. And a very wise friend of mine advised me just to start, to do the first year and see how that goes. And I completely fell in love with architecture.
Yeah, why? Say, what about it?
It was just so magical to be able to create spaces. We had a lot of, first year, it's a lot of foundation work. So history of architecture and art and drawing lessons and the craziest ideas that you can imagine. It's like you're just starting, so they let you express all the wild things that you have in you. That dynamic, it's like that building, the School of Architecture, had people 24 hours there. It was always the light is on. There was this collaborative spirit where you can always go to the third floor or to the first floor and talk to other people in 3 a.m. and brainstorm your projects. And it just completely lit me up. And I fell in love with doing that.
So you're talking to strangers all the time. You're building collaborative projects together. You're shaping the space around you. It's a bit ironic, though, because there's such a commitment to place, right? With art, I mean, you have a building that stays in one place. It doesn't move around. Yeah. And then there is your sort of nomadic spirit. I actually wanted to ask you about that a little bit, but how did you reconcile that just with your own sort of interest in movement and travel and so on with kind of commitment to place and space that architecture requires?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's always, that tension between being still and moving. And I think that this is where the essence of life is. So for me, I started by being still. The first job I got as an architect, I was a third-year student, and I was presenting one of my projects in an exhibition. And someone walked up to me and said, "Who designed this?" And I said, "That's me." And he gave me his business card and he told me, "Call me." And this is how I started to work.
Wow.
And Brandon, I was so excited to finally start real job with real buildings and, not cardboard and like designed for real clients. And life happened, as I started to experience the reality outside of the academic world. It was so different. We did creative work just a little portion of our time, and then the rest of the time you're just drawings and bureaucracy. And that's good. We need that. That's part of the training. But I felt unfulfilled for such a long time. Then I moved into a smaller firm. So it took me 7 years to admit that this is not working for me. And I became a partner. It was a long time. Then a personal crisis happened in my life. Me and my partner, we decided to split, and a dear friend of mine passed from cancer. At that point, I was changing apartments in Tel Aviv. I'm from Israel originally, all the time. And it just felt like the city is trying to push me away, right? There was a 24-hour construction site in one apartment. Then I'd moved to a different one. And there was a club on the weekend that makes the building shake. And I just felt like enough is enough. I don't know what I'm going to do next, but it's definitely not living the same day over and over again. I'm going to sell all my belongings and get a one-way ticket to Japan. And I did.
Wow.
And this is how I started.
Why Japan?
Oh, why not? It's like I was so fascinated by Japan and Japanese culture. And I think that deep down, I just wanted to be somewhere that is so radically different from everything I know and everything I ever experienced. Even the letters, you can't even read the letters. It's just something that is so radically different. That was the beginning of my journey.
How long were you in Japan?
The maximum visa. So you get 90 days. On the 87th day, I was like, okay, it's time to go somewhere else.
What did you do there? How did you so you mean you've come from this crisis, you've moved to a totally alien environment where you don't, did you speak the language at all, or how did you navigate?
Nothing.
How did you get? Yeah. So what was it like?
Oh man, it was feeling alive again. After being in an office environment for so long, under the fluorescent light with a fixed temperature, just in front of the screen, like you don't touch anything, you just touch keyboards or a little bit of paper, but it's a very uninspiring environment for creative people. And all of a sudden I was in Tokyo for, I stayed there 5 or 6 weeks. And every day I would choose a spot on Tokyo's map that I haven't been to before, just go there and wander around for hours without having a specific destination. And that act of, immersing yourself in a new environment, meeting people and getting to know places and visiting, incredible spaces like only Tokyo can offer, really, was just an experience of going back to my senses, to my body. I felt alive again. But again, I was still so confused about what's next for me. It's not that I knew that I'm going to do what I do now. Back then, I gave up the idea of being an architect because I was taught there is only one way of doing that.
Right.
Yeah, so I was in Tokyo. Then I traveled to some other areas, and things started to shift when I met a couple who had just bought a hotel, and they asked me to help them with the design of the hotel. And that was the first sign that I can do both, the first sign that I can actually travel and work as an architect. And that was something that I had to validate again and again. So
what did you build? Because this led you to create something.
Yeah. So they just bought a hotel and they wanted to renovate it. They had this idea, this plan to cancel the lobby and the common areas and create more rooms. Sounds great, right? No. So they told me, but we're not sure. Maybe you want to come and have a look and tell us what you think. So I went there, and what they did, the lobby, well, it did not did it. It's just the way the building was structured, is that the layout, all the public areas were behind closed doors, so you can't see them. It means that you can walk from the main door to your room and back out without having any social interaction. And obviously, it made people not use that space because they never remember it exists. So what we did, we changed the design of the floor and we made it more inviting and visual. It's a little bit like, you know how when you want to eat healthier and you put a bowl of fruit in your kitchen, so you see it, you remember to have some fruit from time to time. It's exactly the same. So whenever we see a space, it's an invitation to behave in a certain way or to engage with the world in a certain way. So we have to be very mindful of what are we creating and how people are responding to it. So that was just the first example. And another thing we did there, they had those IKEA cups. And I didn't realize, like, why? Apparently that village is quite famous for ski, and they have many Australians coming in, and they say they keep on breaking glasses. And they didn't want to get the expensive ones. And I said, no, like there's no way we're going to use that. We went to secondhand stores and we found in Japan, you can find the most beautiful secondhand sets of teacups in those big wooden boxes. And it's just like $1 or $2, it's insane.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, we're getting rid of everything that is like not local. Like, I don't mind. If it breaks, we'll go back and we'll buy more. But we have to deliver an experience of being in Japan.
Yeah, what that led to, did you feel that was successful? And what did that lead you to build after?
So that was great. I left them with the instructions and blueprint and some aesthetics instructions. And then I kept traveling. And about a year later, they messaged me and they said, you wouldn't believe the lobby is full all the time. Like there are people using it all the time. And I was just like, this is great. But at that time, I thought it's just a one-time thing. So I kept on traveling in Japan. And at some point, I couchsurfed somewhere in front of the art islands. And it's a funny story, right? So this couple, they used to live in San Francisco, and now they're back in Japan. And they have this vision where they want to... There's a phenomena where villages are getting abandoned because of young people moving to the cities. And they wanted to bring back that age group back to the village, back to live there. And they were trying to convincing the city hall to allow them to use this beautiful seafront building that used to be a hospital. When they realized that I'm an architect, they asked me if I'm willing to do a consulting session with them and to record it so they can present it to the city hall. So we did that. That's the second time that I'm already using my skills as an architect. So when I arrived in Thailand, I decided to run an experiment. I posted on a local Facebook group, hi, I'm Adi, I'm an architect. I'm going to be here for a few weeks. Just let me know if you need anything. And people reached out and I was completely mind-blown. I didn't even have a website back then.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess I was onto something. I wasn't really sure what back then, but it became clearer and clearer with time. So there is this group of global citizens, of location-independent people, and they're seeking to create something that has both this global spirit of freedom, but also something that is very respectful towards the local heritage and culture. And when they're looking for an architect, they're looking for someone who understands both worlds. And that was me for some of them. And then I made my part of the deal, which is I had a website planned and I started spreading the word wherever I went. And also, I needed to change. You asked, how does it work, right? Because buildings, it takes time and usually you have to stay there for a few years. So I had to find which part of architecture can I do on the go or can I specialize in? And obviously also my license does not apply globally, right? That's another thing.
Right.
So basically, it's the same model as the biggest firms in the world are using, concept development, and then collaboration with a local firm that does execution and licensing. So I really did not invent anything. I just didn't wait for me to, I don't know, become this really big brand and then to receive the invites to go places. I just created those collaborations before. And that allows me to do what I love best, and that's design.
While also doing the traveling that you love to do.
Yes.
So let me ask you, just going back to Japan, because you've grown up. I mean, and again, I don't know when you mentioned you were traveling with your parents. Was it in Israel, or were you traveling around the world, or what was
Oh,
that like? I'm just curious to know how you reconciled aesthetic styles, and because they're so culturally specific, right? The things that we're used to in a particular culture might be very different from what others in different cultures find aesthetically pleasing. And so when it comes to design, did you find that to be a challenge, or, moving from Israel to Japan, what was that like? So I'm just really curious to how that played a role.
yeah, absolutely. Great question. I never left Israel before that trip to India. We were just
Wow.
traveling in Israel and mostly in nature. But you know what? I do think that we have different aesthetics with different cultures, but we also have subconscious tendencies as human beings. And there are some patterns
Hmm.
that we all respond to because of the way we evolved. And when we design, we accommodate those, right? We always have to add the local layer, but
Yeah.
underneath that, the aesthetic DNA of human beings is kind of similar. Do you agree?
Well, give me an example. So, I mean, I think you talked about the fruit bowl as being a kind of way in which the space we're in almost forces us to respond a certain way, or the lobby,
Mm-hmm.
right, where you create an open space that forces people to come to. Yeah. What are the other kinds of examples that you've used?
Oh, so many. So let's talk about an experience that everyone knows. For example, going into a supermarket. You feel overwhelmed,
Hmm.
you turn right. You stick to a wall.
Hmm.
That's something that we all do because that's safer. And we behave differently in spaces that we know and we don't know. And whenever you look at a public space and you can see where people are spending time with, there's an incredible documentary, I think it's from the 60s, called The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces. Have you watched it?
No,
No,
no.
it's wonderful. They're so insightful about how people behave in spaces and how they interact with each other and what they enjoy doing and what is that
Hmm.
sense of agency that people have in a space and how they respond to the sun or sitting in the sun or having some shade.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about patterns, right? There is a pattern called
Huh.
prospect and refuge. Is that feeling of being protected from above and behind and overlooking a distant view.
Hmm.
That is something that
Hmm.
our neurobiological body responds to it so much. That's why we love, viewpoints.
Yeah, that's like where we met in
Exactly.
in Lisbon, right? It
Exactly.
was that sort of location. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah. Wow.
imagine viewpoints, window seats. There is something irresistible about them. And tall men, women that want to have a tall partner, it's the
Right,
same
right,
pattern.
right.
It's like, oh, I want to feel protected. This is it. And we don't think about those things. But in design, actually in retail design, we think about it all the time, right? Like the
Hmm.
scent design and shelving strategy and how we feel about things that are in eye level or above eye level or below eye level. But what if we use the same ideas for good, for creating
Mm-hmm.
inspiring
Mm-hmm.
places, for creating places that amplify well being and mental and physical health? We can do that. We have the
Yeah.
tools.
Right. Are there ways in which these insights have shaped your particular creative vision? I mean, is there a way you would describe your distinctive architectural style, and does it cater to some of those elements?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say it's a style, but I think it's an approach or a way to
Hmm.
ask questions. As I said, I like asking questions. And on our website, there is an incomplete manifesto that keeps changing because of how knowledge keeps changing and how we are. But definitely to be able to tap into different cultures and places. Brendan, if you look at my world map where I've been, it looks like a kid drew on it. It's just so full of
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
lines. And I find it incredible as a creative to be able to experience with all of my senses different places around the world, different scales
Right.
and patterns and light and building techniques. And this is just like, mind blowing. And
Hmm.
as good as it gets, really, as a creative to
Huh.
be able to experience that. And what I noticed is that some places have that magnetic feeling, that timeless
Hmm.
quality that we feel drawn to. And I think we all know it in our gut feeling when we see a place and you just go, oh, I love it here. Oh, I wish I could live
Hmm.
here. We had that maybe in Italy, it's quite often that you go, you walk by a house or a balcony, just think, oh, it would have been great to live here. And also the other experience of being somewhere and feeling contracted and restless, but it's all right. You don't know why you're feeling so weird, but you can't wait to leave this place. So we all had those experiences, and it has nothing to do with budget. And it made me think, okay, how can we create those kind of places? And it's just a set of, like so many different things that we can take under consideration depending on the site, the project, which kind of moments we want to create there. Where are we in the world? What time of the day people are going to use this building? There's so many factors to take into consideration.
Beauty at Work is brought to you by Templeton Religion Trust. If you enjoyed this clip, go check out the full episode. And please take a moment to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps get the word out about the show. Thanks, and see you next time.